Welcome to Conversations from Stritch. Today is Thursday, September 26th. I'm Dr. David Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined by Dr. Christopher Sent, our provost. It's been a wild week for me. We missed last week because I was out of the country. I went to Africa, to Nairobi, to visit one of our universities there and to plan for the Encuentro that'll be coming up in the fall of 2025, as well as to Memphis, which was a great trip. We got to meet with the university presidents from around the United States, but we also had Brother Hernan, who's the president at Bethlehem University. So it was a really great week of a lot of just appreciation for the LaSallian global community and all that's going on around the world. It's also been a great week here at Lewis on our multiple campuses. This week's community hour featured Latino bingo, a financial aid workshop, and a lecture by Amanda Simpson, who I was fortunate. I've been out of the off campus until just last night, but was able to meet with Dr. Simpson this morning. She was speaking about environmental sustainability in the aviation industry, and we had a fascinating conversation. She's doing a colloquium this afternoon about the future of aviation, as well as the future even of spaceflight. She's a fascinating individual, so if you get a chance to go to the colloquium this afternoon, that would be great. She's a former VP at Airbus and was speaking on aviation and business to students and faculty about her work. This weekend, second annual Lewis Fest, which will bring together alumni, parents, and families for a day of fun and engagement on the Romeo campus, has games, activities, music, food, mass, and opportunities to watch softball, soccer, and our play that I'll talk more about later. We're less than a month away from Signum Fidei. And this year we are honoring Brian and Mary Durkin for their contributions to Lewis, as well as paying tribute to the loss of Dr. Juan Ojeda from St. Augustine, who served there for more than 2 decades and really was an amazing individual, really helped so many students over his period. And Brian and Mary have helped the College of Business so much. Tickets are still available. It raises money for the Mission Fund, which helps our most vulnerable students across the university. And we're really excited about that night and all that it allows us to celebrate our students. It's really going to be a night of celebrating our students, and there's going to be a red carpet and all sorts of fun things. So in addition to all that, there's been a lot going on campus.
Yeah, and before we go there, I am also really looking forward to Signum Fidei and to honoring those, to Brian and Mary and Juan. But I want to ask you a couple questions. So you mentioned your trip to Nairobi. Some people watching may not know what you mean when you say one of our universities there. So maybe. So
we have 65 universities around the globe. We have 2 in East Africa, which is the English-speaking portion, and that group is also a part of our region in the International Association of LaSallian Universities. And so right now it's Christ the Teacher University, which is a part of Tangaza University right in Nairobi, and so it's a teacher college, but they're forming a new university that'll do business, computer science, health sciences, and education. They're getting off the ground and plan to have their first class next fall. The main reason was to try these 65 universities. We will, you and I will both be going. Next fall, we'll be getting about 125 to 150 leaders from around the globe. We'll be getting together in Nairobi next fall to talk about global LaSallian education and how we can better serve students around the globe, as well as how we better interact with each other. So how can the faculty and students in the Philippines enhance the educational experience for students that are here at Lewis, and vice versa? How do our students enhance the educational opportunities for students in Mexico or Barcelona? And
that's the expression you used earlier was encuentro. So that getting together of all of us next fall is this.
Yes,
encuentro.
And it happens every 3 years. And the encuentro is that expression we used to say that that bringing together the community, the re-encountering. It's basically the encounter that we have on campus, but it's really the way we talk about getting those people together. And so, yeah, we'll have 4 days in Nairobi to gather, and there'll be people speaking from the UN on global education, but also many people from Africa really trying to, I would say the takeaway hope from this meeting next year will be for people like you and I to really understand where is higher education in Africa on a Lasallian context today, that is in 2025, and then where do they think it'll be in 2035, right? And what will happen, and how can we be a part of that?
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I hope you're not too jet lagged being
Yeah,
here.
well, a little bit.
I also was incredibly impressed by Amanda Simpson and the work that she has done and the life that she's lived. Has been so amazing to be a part of this whole week, and she's so generous with her time, speaking to classes and giving major lectures on very different topics throughout the week because of her expertise is so broad. It's just been wonderful for our students, and great to see so many students and faculty attending the events that she's been speaking at. I actually have a few kind of elaborations of things that are coming up on the calendar ahead, and then you'll talk about this week's calendar. So the History Department welcomes the Midwest World History Conference tomorrow and Saturday, September 27th and 28th. The conference brings together students, professors, and the public from the surrounding area. Part of that conference this year is the Fall 2024 Sepaniak Endowed Lecture featuring Tameen Ansari, who is a celebrated author and noted thought leader in the field of world history. He'll discuss his most recent publication, The Invention of Yesterday. There it is. And I can't read the subtitle on the screen, but it has to do with the whole history of human culture. So I'm really looking forward to hearing that lecture tomorrow night. He'll, as I said, he'll offer an overview and historical narratives in the global age tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And that's part of the Midwest World History Conference, but also our annual Sepaniak lecture. The Catholic Muslim Studies program of Catholic Theological Union and the Grow Institute at Lewis are hosting an interreligious conversation with two influential Palestinian voices who can share how women individually and collectively foster peace-building efforts in the Holy Land on October 8th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. in a presentation called, as we can see here, Exploring the Contributions of Women Toward Peace, Dignity, and Justice in the Holy Land, featuring Doctors Rima Salah and Iman Abdelhadi. The guest speakers will address the past, present, and future of women's empowerment, peace building, and the pursuit of justice and dignity in the Holy Land. Looking forward to that. This is just a reminder, as we do this time of year during every election season, to register to vote by October 20th to be eligible to vote in the November 5th election. Please visit the website address there, turbovote.org, lewisu.turbovote.org for assistance with voter registration. Again, our Civic Engagement Committee on campus is hosting voter registration tables on the Romeoville campus for several weeks. You'll see them at every community hour and throughout the season. So please sign up and register to vote, to schedule and also we need volunteers to help manage those tables. So if you want to schedule a shift to help others register at one of the registration areas, please contact the Civic Engagement Committee. All right, so it's time for this fall's first play called Superior Donuts, written by Tracy Letts. We will have performances September 27th through 29th and October 3rd through 4th at the Philip Lynch Theater. Tony Award and Pulitzer Prize winning playwright Tracy Letts weaves a heartwarming and humorous tale of unlikely friendships in one of Chicago's most diverse neighborhoods. This comedy drama explores the challenges of embracing the past and the redemptive power of friendship. So I'm really looking forward to, I think I was going to go tonight, but I think I'm going to go to Sunday as part of the Lewis Fest.
Yeah, Joan and I are going tonight. When our kids were born, we lived in Uptown, and this takes place in Uptown. So we're looking forward to going and kind of trying to see about Memory Lane.
And obviously St. Augustine
is right
near the setting of this play as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I did want to just mention a couple things. I think exciting that we're hosting this reflection on women's empowerment in the Middle East and in Palestine, and being with Brother Hernan. Again, it just reminds me of the global scale of the LaSallian mission. But just to remind people that, this is very close to home for us. Not only do we have many students from the Middle East and from Palestine, but I really think and pray for our faculty and staff, because the students at Bethlehem University have all had to go online because of the recent violence. So, they had to go online during COVID, and now they're back in that situation because of the violence that's going on around them. And just so challenging to try to think about studying in a context where there's just so much violence in and around your family situation. So a few things that are going on this week that we're excited about. Tonight, 4:30 this afternoon, Women in Aviation Campfire at Fire Pit number 1. Also, the Kappa Theta Pi has a meeting tonight, and constructing a pinball machine is also going on, as well as a Best Buddies meeting. So I don't know if this is their first meeting of the year. It's probably their second meeting of the year. But if you haven't been involved in Best Buddies, you might want to just go over there at 6 tonight and see if you want to join in. There's a Alpha Psi Lambda bonfire night at Fire Pit 2 from 7 to 10 tonight. So a lot going on. I would just walk around campus and look for the different bonfires. I don't actually know where these two fire pits are, but I know that if you see it lit up, you might want to stop there, and you can see it on there. As Dr. Sint said, the Superior Donuts preview is tonight. That's for faculty and staff. It's kind of the last dress rehearsal, to be honest, for that for the troupe that is doing the play. Chris already talked about the Midwest World History Association Conference. That'll be tomorrow night at 7. And then the Superior Donuts play will take place over the next 2 weeks. So take advantage of the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday performances. Men's soccer hosts William and Jewel tomorrow night. And then we also will have the Heritage and Hope. It's a Catholic response to the migrant crisis that will be taking place on Sunday. That event, again, is, I think, really important. It's a part of our kind of Catholic social teaching heritage to try to worry about and think about how best to serve migrants. So I think that'll be a great opportunity for people to interact with that. And then on Sunday, the Lewis Fest occurs in the University Green between 11 and 5. We already mentioned that, but just to remind people that that's an opportunity for people. And then end of the weekend and into next week, you can see on the screen, there's a Mario Kart at Brother James Gaffney competition. We also have Amadeus playing. I love that movie, but that's an oldie but a goodie. And that's playing the Late Show 9 to 11 next week on Tuesday. And then, of course, Community Hour returns next Wednesday, and we'll look forward to all those events. So we have a great guest today. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. So Dr. Sint, do you want to introduce our guest?
Yes, I'm very pleased to introduce our guest. Before I do so, as always, remember that you can email a question to askus@lewisu.edu. If you're watching live right now, as we talk, you can get your question into the conversation. And remember that if you are watching a recorded version of this, you may also send in a question or comment, and we can refer it to our guest or to anybody who might be able to answer the question and respond. So I'm really pleased to introduce Dr. Shireen Roshanravan, who is Lewis University's Vice President for Diversity. She earned her PhD in the Philosophy, Interpretation, and Culture program at Binghamton University. Before coming to Lewis, she served as faculty in the Ethnic and Women, Gender, and Sexuality Studies departments at Kansas State University, and more recently as the inaugural Executive Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Northeastern Illinois University. Shireen, so nice to be with you and welcome you to talk with us today.
So nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Thank you.
We have a lot of potential things to talk about, and I guess I want to begin at the beginning, sort of like, and I just mentioned that this is really your second experience being a Chief Diversity Officer with a slightly different title and so on, but so I think you're an expert on that, on this question. Okay. What is a Chief Diversity Officer?
That is a great question. So Chief Diversity Officer, the role has kind of evolved over the decades. Its first sort of manifestation, probably after the passage of a lot of civil rights laws, was much more focused on compliance. So making sure that institutions of higher ed, but also industry, were making sure that employees, and in the case of higher ed students, were getting the accommodations they need in accordance with ADA, Title IX, other dimensions of inclusion that were now mandated based on those particular civil rights laws. And then over the years, it has grown beyond compliance to incorporate more robustly cultural and closing cultural dimensions of diversity and fostering that, and then also closing equity gaps, which means if we had a history of excluding certain groups in these institutions of higher education and other industries, what are some proactive steps that we need to take to correct some of that, the results of those exclusions, to make sure that not only are we welcoming everyone into our space as an employee or a student, but that we're actually creating an environment for everybody to thrive. So I would say that a Chief Diversity Officer nowadays is very much focused on that entire infrastructure of making sure that we're providing a culture, the operations, and the pedagogy and service that allows everyone who's inside of the institution and our surrounding communities to feel fully included at every possible level.
So let me, I just want to go back to like when you start. It feels like you've been here for a couple of years, some days to me. But you've only been here 5 months?
Yeah.
5 months. So started late last spring. And so talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that you've already done, and then maybe some of the things that are coming that people can look forward to this fall. So what's on the agenda? What has happened? What were some of maybe the things that you felt most excited about, like after it was over? You did a lot of planning and then this happened and you were like, oh, that was great.
Sure. So one of the things that really drew me to come to Lewis University was the many exciting work that had already been done here, and that's being done with the merger with St. Augustine College, the becoming an HSI, Hispanic Serving Institution, and just the growing diversity and commitments of a LaSallian institution. And so when I got here, I was very eager to engage with as many people as I could, and there were a couple priorities that I had. And so immediately one of the things that I was interested in doing is engaging with what's going on at St. Augustine College with its mission to serve the Spanish-speaking population of Chicago. And I had done some work in thinking about what it means to highlight how people live in between languages. And so I hosted an event at St. Augustine College with Dr. Gabriela Veronelli, who led a Latinx Testimonio project, which really focuses on folks who identify within that Hispanic Latino umbrella to share what their experiences are like, either being a Spanish speaker, as a native speaker, as being someone who grew up in a household where Spanish was the predominant language and not knowing Spanish fluently, and just sharing those stories. And so we invited her to share about that project at St. Augustine and had wonderful conversations. We hope to continue some of those conversations. And at the same time, I'm very attentive to the ways in which nationally we need to think about serving our communities of African American and Black folks in terms of access to higher education. And so I wanted to see if we could launch a Black August commemoration at Lewis University. And so I didn't have a whole lot of time, but I think we did an amazing job. I put feelers out to folks who wanted to be involved, and with the amazing teamwork, because teamwork makes the dream work, we were able to, we did a fundraiser for the Black Student Union and the prison education program, because Black August was started inside the prisons for basic human rights. So these were freedom fighters who were incarcerated in the 60s and 70s who started that struggle and that movement. And then it grew to national prominence. And so I think it's a really amazing thing that we were able to do an observance the entire month.
Yeah, and I want to go back to both those things. The Black August was wonderful, and I was able to go to some of the events in person and some of them online. I find the issues around language, culture, and all that related to the Latino, Hispanic community, and this differences that were talked about at this event that you mentioned. Because the more that I'm involved, the more time I spend with members of the St. Augustine community or members of the leaders in the Chicago area, I hear this all the time. Like, I was raised in this family, but my parents didn't want me to speak Spanish because they wanted me to speak English, even though they spoke Spanish, and they didn't want me to speak at home, even though that wasn't comfortable for them. Others who Spanish was the home language for sure. And when I was at school, I went to a school in which mostly it was Spanish speakers, and so my English wasn't that good, and everything in between. And I really think that I would say for me, and this is, embarrassing is probably the wrong way to say it, but I'm constantly learning about things that I didn't know and how diverse. Not just how diverse, I knew how diverse because I spent a lot of time in Latin America, and I've known a lot, so I know there's Puerto Rican, part of the Chicago Latino kind of community, and there's people from Venezuela, and there's a lot of our, fellow citizens and colleagues at St. Augustine who are from Mexico. But what I don't think I appreciated as much is how diverse the experience of growing up as a migrant. And I'm sure that this was true of Italians and Germans as they came to the United States. This is certainly, but now I just hear it all the time. And I think, I guess I'm interested in maybe if you had one or two takeaways from that meeting that you heard from people, because my sense of that in hearing some of the feedback was that it was great for people to hear that other people have this experience and then to speak it.
Yes.
But maybe you could talk a little bit about what are some of those takeaways?
Sure. No, it was really powerful. I think that one of the things that the event allowed was for people to reflect on exactly their experiences that maybe they haven't had time to pause and think about, like, oh yeah, I remember that I have a parent or grandparent that was hit at school because they spoke Spanish in the south of the United States, right, in Texas or wherever. And so they learned early on that, if you're going to survive and be okay, and then you have to hold that language in private, right, not in public. And that then passes down a loss of sorts, right, of that language. And so there's a lot of pain that's inside some of us because of that loss, and then shame on top of it because of the ways that language gets conflated with identity, I think particularly for Latino folks. And so it's important to unpack the histories that have shaped both the personal histories and the larger, national and state histories that shape what languages we're fluent in and comfortable in, and how do we honor multilinguality and fluency, not just in one particular way. That was the other takeaway, is that some folks may think that they're monolingual, but they actually do understand, right, other languages in a particular way. But we reduce the notion of multilinguality to like speaking and writing in these really standardized ways. And so part of the conversation, the other takeaway was, how do we create a culture where we honor multiple ways of engaging and communicating that aren't so reductive, that make us feel like either we fit or we don't fit in that process of emerging as multilingual people. Yeah. So it was really wonderful.
That's great.
So
That's great.
I want to maybe go back a little bit, and we have a question I'm going to ask, but I'm going to ask a preliminary question of my own first, and
Sure.
then So you mentioned when you were talking about what a chief diversity officer is, sort of some of the dimensions, and you mentioned the purpose being, I forget the words you used, but like allowing opportunities for all members of the community to thrive, I think is the word you used. So that's a good, I guess this is my question. Is there anything you want to add to the why this work is important, or the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion is valuable and important for individuals, for an organization like Lewis?
Sure. I like to frame DEI work much more in terms of it. In many ways, it's the best way to do things, no matter what area you occupy in the university or the industry, because the goal, the why is very much like, how do you reach the most people in terms of whatever your mission is, right? So if you're here to educate folks, right? If you're here to create opportunities for learning, DEI is all about what are the best possible ways that you could do your role to reach the maximum amount of people and move them in the ways that you want to move them and serve them in the ways that you want to serve them. It's really that simple, right? And so because we live in a diverse world that is complex and just simply going to grow in that beautiful complexity of what it is, it's incumbent about all of us to figure out, how do we stay abreast, how do we stay engaged with that diversity so that we can make sure that we're not leaving folks out who we want to serve.
Right.
Yeah.
And could I just, before you get to the question, could I just ask you to reflect on how valuable this is for everyone, not traditional students who are from diverse communities.
Right.
So Dave Livingston is a white guy. He grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. He's, quote unquote, normal in terms of Chicago suburban white American culture. But I have benefited so much from traveling to South America, from traveling globally, from having friends who come from different cultures.
Sure.
Because, and I think this is a very Catholic and Lasallian thing, the Catholic Church is a global church. It is in every country in the entire globe, and it has a presence there, and it has to work as a global community. But if you join any multinational corporation, or if you're just a nurse in Joliet, you will serve, your patients will be people from everywhere in the world. So could you just talk about how, because I think sometimes people think, oh, the diversity officer is only concerned about these people who either have a different culture or come from a different racial background or whatever, than quote unquote, again, this is the majority speak, right? It's just the privilege of being able to say, then quote unquote us.
Right.
Whereas in fact, everybody benefits because everybody lives, and you said this already, it is a diverse community, period, end of discussion. That's what the globe is. So could you talk about how your work would benefit Dave Livingston at 18? If David come to Lewis, how does this white, kid benefit from the work you do?
Sure. No, I love that question because I agree. I think a lot of times the framing is like, oh, they brought the chief diversity in to attend to the students that have been historically, or from backgrounds historically underrepresented or marginalized, and she's for them, right? Or they're for them. And the truth is that, first of all, I want to say that Dave, the white guy who grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and whoever we are, wherever we come from, and I mean this, our histories are all interrelated. So the truth is that no matter what you think your genealogy is, there's so many intricate webs of connection that someone from Africa, of African descent, we can figure out how their histories are shaped and yours are shaped by theirs, right? And so really with the benefit that the 18-year-old Dave would have, and anyone who shares your background, being more, traditional part of the dominant culture, is that you have a much more expansive understanding of who you are, which also increases the understanding of the impact that you can have and your capacity to relate and engage with people who you think have nothing to do with you. And what that also does is it helps you get really clear on how you're situated in relation to different people with whom you're going to encounter, work with, who may work for you at some point, who you may want to serve. and you're better positioned to act in ways that align with your integrity, I think. And I think that's why it's just better for everyone to be engaged in this work.
Thank you.
And I think the real Dave, the one that is not talking about himself in the third person, and I encounter business leaders all the time who have no problem with this concept. They are highly value the diverse experience of our students and the way in which they're prepared to engage in their work across difference, because they know that their companies will be more productive if they're getting the most out of everybody who works there. And having a diverse workforce is actually valuable compared to not having a diverse.
Yeah, if I may add 2 more points to this topic. One is on the more cynical side of things. If you're going into corporate business or any kind of business, there's also just the baseline liability issue. You want to be, I mean, whether you believe in it or not, you have to, there are certain things you have to comply with. And so if you want to do business practices with the lowest liability, you want to know the best practices in engaging with diverse populations. Now, of course, I want everyone to rise beyond
Above
that.
Just the law. We can go beyond the law, but we do have to comply with the law.
But in terms of motivations, that can simply be the baseline motivation. And the other thing is what you were saying, which is, and I think we've been talking about this, but to name it, it's just that what a joy and wonder to encounter people different from you.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there's so many skills and strategies and creativity that you get when you're with diverse peoples and you honor that diversity.
Yes.
Okay, so now here's the question
All right,
that
the question.
All right.
Why is DEI, which seems so focused on inclusion, become so political in other states and other universities?
That's a great question.
Maybe what kind of empathy can we have toward people who feel resistance to this? I guess.
Yeah. I always like to say in response to that question that in some ways DEI has never not had to move and struggle, right? So there's a way in which there wasn't the heyday of DEI, so to speak. And so there's empathy there, but the good news is that there's a legacy of strategy in persisting in the work, even when you have challenges in terms of naming it as such, or fostering programs in the ways that we're lucky at Lewis that we have that support. I will say, so if I'm just speaking strategy-wise, right? A lot of the focus in states where it's becoming outlawed to have any kind of DEI office or personnel is to listen and pay attention to how they're defining the DEI, what they're saying it's about, and their rationale for making it illegal, right?
Yeah, that feels so important because, again, I think that notion of empathy for kind of what's underneath this frustration, right? Why? And again, I think from a Lasallian perspective, when people say you can't talk about the word justice, we just have to reject that. I don't know. And there's no.
Right.
The Catholic Church is fundamentally focused on making a more just world. Now, that's why I want to get underneath the hood on that and say, why are you making it illegal to talk about justice in a curriculum or have an office that's focused on justice? This is about something else. So it feels to me like the politicians or the professionals in that context are trying to get at something different, which I think most people are driven by protection, fear, right? A sense of loss. If this happens, then I'm going to lose something.
Yep.
And so we don't have time to get into all this today, but I do think that notion of trying to appreciate, and again, here at Lewis, there's certainly people on our campus who feel like, why are we doing this? What is the fear or sense of loss or sense of, that sense of somebody's going to take something away from me, and how do we work on that, right? Because I think that is crucial to this. Because, again, the church, the gospel, the people have been struggling with this for a long time. Do you lose something by giving someone else something? Is it a zero-sum game?
Right.
And
Right.
that feels to me like that narrative is something that we as LaSallians reject. It is not, you don't just take something from someone else and give it to it. It's a better world when we're more diverse.
World.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just, yes. And again, I think that narrative has persisted since there's been multicultural curriculum and all of this, right? It's this fight of like, well, we're losing what was or what, and somehow there's some folks now who are getting short shrift because we're expanding the perspectives. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, which is it depends on your sense of self, right? Like if you think that your history is in this like rigid boundary and it doesn't touch these other histories, then yeah, you have this sense of self that's, singular and a straight line. But that's fortunately not true, right? We have these much more expansive and interconnected selves. So if you think of it that way, learning about other people is still learning about yourself. And it's just learning about other dimensions of yourself, and some of which are not fun to learn about. And I speak from personal experience. Not fun to learn, my ancestors helped, colonize India by helping build ships, with the, whatever,
Right, sure.
And I learned that and I was like, ooh, like that's not fun to learn about. But at the same time now I'm aware of that and it positions me better to act with integrity and ethics, right? And I want to know that because it helps me be the person I want to be in the world. So again, I think it goes back to that fundamental assumption of how do we understand our histories in relation to other people?
Yeah, and surviving that discovery of who you are is a feeling, like it makes you a better person moving forward. And
exactly.
Okay, I'm going to sort of change the subject. This is I know you've been here 5 months or whatever, and it feels like a long time. You've accomplished a lot, but it's also kind of your introduction to the community right now. So one of many. But so I just would love it if you just talk a little bit about your education. Like what did you study in graduate school? What was your dissertation about?
Sure. So I went to a very unique doctoral program called Philosophy, Interpretation, and Culture program at State University of New York, Binghamton. And it was interdisciplinary in the truest sense of the term. So I got my degree, my doctoral degree says philosophy, but I was able to get that degree while focusing on Latin American philosophy and women of color feminist coalition building. And that's what my dissertation focused on. So people don't often hear philosopher and think Angela Davis, but Angela Davis is indeed a very classically trained philosopher. And so her work, Maria Lugones, who is now with the ancestors, Latin American feminist philosopher, was my advisor. And so my dissertation focused very specifically on what it meant.
I found this on the web.
Is that yours?
We love artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
Go on.
my watch just went off. They found my dissertation on the web. No. So I focused on what it meant to become an Asian American. So my mom is from India, my dad is from Iran. So that particular descendants and racialization in the United States and my coming to identify in this coalitional term as a woman of color and the intricacies of that work, both accounting for my own historical complicities and anti-Blackness and some things of that nature that a lot of us share, and being accountable for that while entering coalitions of diverse people. Right. And so it's really a dissertation about strategies for coalition building in that intricate terrain, written from a kind of autoethnographical experience of doing that work.
It's great.
And you've continued to do, like, I guess maybe, are you able to, I know you have done a lot of scholarship since then, but are you able to continue it now? Or, what are you working on now?
Yeah, so I've published 2 co-edited collections that are derived from the dissertation. One is Asian American Feminisms on Women of Color Politics, and it pulls together different Asian American scholars who do that kind of coalitional work. And then the other is more of a festschrift on Maria Lugones, who also worked a lot around coalition building. And it's more philosophical in that way. And then currently, I do have a book, if my publisher's watching, like, where is it?
Yeah, where is it? Those publishers.
so you have
editors are so difficult.
So you have a contract, is what you're
I
saying.
have a contract, I hope still, for a book
I can
that
relate
is
with
is titled The Coalitional Imperative, and it's about the intricacies of doing coalitional work, particularly in the post-movement for Black Lives era. So
That sounds great.
yeah.
I'm sorry, we
we
do have
we have a copy of
demo here.
of your book.
This
Of
is
one.
one. This is
You don't have to
This
hold
is the
it up
Asian
like that.
American Feminism's book I mentioned earlier.
It's real.
Oh, I
It
feel
is
like we're
real.
on.
I
I
did
feel like
write
we're
it.
on Oprah, right? Show your book, and
I'm just
you can find it on Amazon
from my
for
own experiences. I feel like
1995.
nobody ever believes me unless I actually have my books in my hand.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Right.
No, it's amazing work. It's so
Yeah.
interesting, and that new project sounds like I hope you get to write it.
Yeah.
And finish
you.
it. Finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that this is, maybe we could just speak into the challenges of balancing the professional work that all of us who are scholars try to balance with the production of new ideas, which are what books try to do. So could you, maybe both of you could talk about both the hope and challenge of being, and I think this is true for our faculty as well as for us as administrators, of trying to find that balance between producing something new that you love, that you care about, that you invested your career in, and then doing the day in and day out work of being a part of a university.
Well, okay, I'll go first because you looked at me to buy time. I feel like I was really inspired by what Shireen just said 10 minutes ago, which is you're always changing as a person, and the best way to do that is to grow and learn. And for me, the best way to learn is to write or to read. And I feel like the biggest risk as people with busy, complex jobs, and we're administrators, 3 of us are administrators, there's many other examples of this, teaching is one of them, is to get in a rut of sorts where you don't have any kind of opportunity to step back and get any kind of perspective on the work that you are doing presently, or even who you are as a human being. And any of the scholarship that all 3 of us do fits that model, or is beneficial in that way, because it's a lens. It not only stimulates you, but it's a lens upon which you look at yourself and the work that you do with other people. And I just find that incredibly valuable. And it does make everything else, makes me smarter, it makes everything easier. And I'm definitely worse at my job if I don't do that.
Don't take that time.
Over a 6-week period or something like that.
Sure.
What do you think?
Would you add anything to that?
I would echo that, and I guess the only thing I would add is I think people often do a dichotomy between action, like theory and action, and I think that actually there's a lot of thinking that happens, like complex thinking that happens on the ground when you're trying to move and make something happen. And so I think I like to encourage a symbiotic relationship between, being on the ground and then thinking with people on the ground, and then finding the time and space to, I like a lot of collective writing too. I like to encourage that. I think that's important.
Yeah. All right. Any last comments for us? Things that we should have asked you, or things that you really wanted to speak
Or anything
into?
coming up that you want
coming up that you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of things on the horizon. We have a speaker coming. So we're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, and October's also got a lot of national observances happening, including it's LGBTQ History Month. And so we will host a speaker, Dr. Isabel Millan, who is a author of a children's book called Chavalita's Heart. It's a bilingual book. And she's going to talk about supporting Latine and LGBTQ familia. And so I think it's an important talk. I think a lot of times we separate identities out when really we're all multiple things all the time. So I think it's a great opportunity to engage in that. And then Victor Luckerson, who is the award-winning author of a book based on the Tulsa race massacre that happened in Oklahoma. He's the author of a book called The Built from the Fire. And he is coming to Lewis on February 12th, 2025. And this is a collaborative effort with JJC, Joliet Junior College, and University of St. Francis. And so we're excited to prepare for that visit.
Yeah.
So look for invites.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exciting fall. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
joining
much.
us.
Thank you.
Great conversation. We could go on for another hour, but we do have to move on. So I do want to just thank everybody for joining us today. We will be back next week with another great guest. We have so much going on in the next 7 days on campus, so please take advantage of everything. Again, sports, culture, kind of stimulate your intellectual curiosity. We do always keep in mind those who are really scared, in danger, anxious around the globe. I was so reminded of that this past week. So just want to hold those people in our community here that are within, a mile of us around this campus, but people around the globe. So we wish you a wonderful week. Many blessings to you and all those you love.